Hey, everybody, welcome back to my podcast. I'm so glad that you're back with me. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is another edition of Elijah Talks podcast, a platform that I started connected to my main YouTube channel, Elijah Music. If you're an existing guest here, I appreciate your loyalty to tuning in. A lot of the podcasts that I've done prior to this one have often been very, very beneficial for a lot of you. And it's interesting because growing up, deep conversation is something that's normal for me. Um, and upon growing up and getting older, I realized everybody doesn't really have that type of dynamic or, maybe the know-how to express themselves, to articulate how they feel about certain subjects and things like that. So I'm super grateful for the opportunity to not just share my music, but to share my thoughts and have discussions with other people. So I thought I'd come back again and share another one with you. I have a variety of subjects I want to talk about. But before I get into that, some of you know I'm working on my latest single. I had recorded an album and a few singles as well. The last one was "We Acknowledge You." It's a cover song, and this particular song coming up is like a '80s ballad. Anybody that knows me knows I love a song that you just gotta stand flat foot and sing, and particularly express a message that you can share with another person of encouragement, particularly, and the type of songs that you can look in the mirror and sing to yourself. So it's one of those things that I'm super excited about. Kind of anxious because when you write a song, when you have an idea, um, it feels grand in the beginning, and then the longer time goes by, the more you start doubting, the more you start worrying, the more you start overthinking, which is why I often say, to not overthink as much because it's detrimental. The longer time goes by without you materializing something out of it, is the higher probability it's just going to fall down to the ground, which is why most people, they'll more than likely bring an idea to you and then they never follow up on the idea because most people just kind of function that way. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm super grateful that a lot of you have enjoyed the snippet that I shared. Um, it's humbling. I never thought I would have people to listen to my music. It's kind of far fetched for me, but be that as it may, that people are. I'm grateful and I'm excited to put it out. So if you want to hear it, you got to stay tuned for that. Now, connected to the music conversation, I wanted to just jump straight into this podcast. I have a few prompts that I wanted to dive into. And since it's just me today, I'm going to try and give my best outlook on these particular subjects. And hopefully it can stir you mentally to think about things in a way that you probably haven't. Or I realize a lot of people, they think about the things that I talk about, but they find that it's kind of a hush hush type of thing. There's just certain things socially that we kind of agree not to discuss because it's easier to. You've heard me talk about that before, where just a small example when it comes to things like um popularity, the dynamic around that. And it's hard for people to discuss those types of things because some people's friendships are based solely on how agreeable they are, right? Some people have friendships where they can't express freely how they feel about the dynamic because that will risk them being excommunicated from that social group. So this is where I step in. Thankfully, I don't have my life is not constructed in the kind of way where my friendships hang on me being complicit and just being okay with being mistreated. I ran into those things, but I don't tolerate it because I know that there's always somebody willing to treat me the way I deserve to be treated. And I don't have to settle for it regardless of who they are or what they may offer me. And so that's why I'm grateful that my life is set up that way so I can bring that kind of a conversation on your behalf if you're not willing or if you don't feel as comfortable being outspoken about it yourself. Now, that being said, I wanted to touch on networking in music specifically. There's a lot that goes into that, but I'll just kind of summarize it as much as I can. When it comes to musical ventures, there's a lot you have to consider, and I've talked about some of this already, but I wanted to kind of just expand on that and make it more clear what I'm referring to. And again, I don't have to give this disclaimer, but I will, because it's hard for some people to listen to what you say without taking things personally, which I'm okay with that because, again, you can't control what people assume. You can only control how eloquently you express what you have to say, and the chips fall where they may. And that's kind of how I approach these things. I really don't approach my video and my platforms like an opportunity to throw off on anybody. I think that's childish, but I think it's helpful to still be honest, even if people feel that way. So, that being said, when it comes to networking, it's extremely important because you have two kinds of people when it comes to music, and whether they're a musician, whether they're a singer, whether they're a producer, whether they're a songwriter, whatever it may be, you have a class of people that are super independent for a different reasons, whether it is they're more arrogant, where they don't want people to collaborate with because they want credit for everything and they don't want to tie their work to anyone else but their own name. And then you have people that are independent as far as like their ventures, right? They don't need a mass amount of support or resources to try to figure it out. They're willing to roll up their sleeves and figure out how they can get it done. And then you have people that believe that teamwork makes the dream work. They're very eager to collaborate because they may have a very big vision or a very deep idea about how they want to accomplish something musically. So they know that they have to find the pieces of the puzzle to make it all work. And so I want to say there's wisdom in both approaches. But when it comes to networking, there's a few things. One, you have a right to quality. Let's start there. You have a right to quality, and you have a right to collaborate and network with people in the way you want and how you want and with whom you want. The reason why I mention that is because anybody can have skill, excuse me, but not everybody can use the skill in the way that's needful for what you're trying to accomplish. So, a small example, when I recorded my album, it was a complete solo venture. Of course, I had to get the support in different ways, but I had to kind of figure things out. And to be honest, a lot of people left me hanging. They left me hanging in the sense that they knew how this thing worked, but they didn't care enough to give me a heads up about much of it. So I had to fail on my own, and I had to figure things out on my own. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because individuals can have skill, but if they don't use it in a way that serves you, but you drag them along the process, it's just going to blow up in your face. And as well as finding people that are eager to support you and give you the knowledge. So I was working with engineers, for example, that knew how to work with me to get me to both get the result I wanted and considering the fact of my inexperience. So they did that balancing act versus working, say, with an engineer that they know you're inexperienced, but they don't care. They just want to run the clock down and just get you in and get you out. So when I'm using that example to demonstrate that both people do the same job, have the same talent, but one person's intent and approach to me was different. So that's a small example to demonstrate to you that you can network with people that have the talent that can fill in the blank, but you have to ask yourself, how is this individual going to serve what I'm trying to accomplish? And what would that look like? You don't want to get into a recording booth to do vocals, and the person behind the mirror is making you feel uncomfortable. It's a very uninviting environment. These are the type of things that's important. Um, especially, if you feel like you have to drag people to do things, if you have to run behind people and say, "Come on, do this, come on, do that. Did you say you were going to do this? Did you say you were going to do that?" When you find yourself having to do those types of things, that's not the kind of networking that's going to be beneficial, and it's not the kind of networking that will serve you. It is important to have quality and characteristic as well. Um, you will get the best out of your musical ventures if the people you're collaborating with share an enthusiasm of the project, right? There's a difference between someone doing you a favor just to make you owe them one versus someone doing you a favor because they appreciate and they respect you and they also share the enthusiasm of what you're trying to do. That it's a night and day different in the experience, which is, I'm really trying to paint this for you because somebody may be desperate to try to figure things out and desperate to just link up with any and everybody, but you're sacrificing character, you're sacrificing moral clarity, you're sacrificing respect, for just getting the job done, and it often works out for your bad. And I really want to just point that out. It is very common, and that's why I was mentioning about the networking aspect, because this is not just, specifically, I know a lot of my audience goes to church. It's not just that. I've spoken and I've had discussions with people, broadly, that it is a culture in music where, you know, it's what have you done for me lately? That kind of a thing. It's not, a lot of the industry have gone away from doing things from a passionate place versus doing things to see if I can get a TikTok viral sound, and when you lose the substance of the why, the the process begins to show that lack of quality as well, right? Where you can link up with people to try to do a thing, and then you're wondering, why is this experience so sour? It's sour because the passion is not there, and the approach to it is extremely vain. um is it awesome to, have that moment if your music blows up, or if you get recognition, if you get acknowledgement? Absolutely. Like, it is, there are people that I look up to musically that have inspired me since I was very, very young, and if they were to acknowledge my work, it would like, it would really thoroughly. I remember two artists that I really grew up loving, Donnie McClurkin and Karen Clark Sheard. They both, I grew up on Donnie. That's what I believe. That Donnie McClurkin, yes. And I remember I did this cover of a snippet of the prayer with him and Yolanda's version a long time ago, and I shared it to my Instagram. And he messaged me back like, I mean, if y'all say it's his team, I don't care. I was still geeking out about it. But he messaged me back and was like, "You have a great voice, keep doing what you're doing." And when I said, I was like, I curled up like a little kid, like geeking out about it. Because it's like, to get acknowledged from someone that you look up to is amazing to me, But at the same token, if a friend of mine messaged me the same thing, I would have probably had the same amount of enthusiasm, because I appreciate kindness from people. I don't appreciate it better if it's specifically coming from a different angle. Like, it's that type of mentality that I was personally raised on, to keep everybody at an even playing field, and even I have to throw the Karen Clark Sheard thing, because a lot of you know that I cover a lot of her songs, and that's we're going to talk about that too, actually, a little bit. But I remember I did a little bit of "Holy Thou Art Holy." It's one of her popular songs on the Finally Karen record, and she told me that I have a beautiful voice and that she loves me, and that was a whole episode. I'm not gonna go into that, but I'm mentioning that to say, like, it made me feel really good. It was one of those trophy moments, So I'm expressing those examples to let you know that, I'm human just like you, and it's perfectly fine to have moments of enthusiasm, and to cherish specific kinds of things, from especially when it comes from people that you have honored and revered for their work, and give people their due honor and their due respect. So absolutely, it has its place. But when it comes to the music industry, for what it's worth, if anybody's watching this, be that person that prioritizes the love of what you do over if I have to say, materialism. I don't think, for example, if Lil Johnny hasn't put a single song out, and he comes to you, and especially if he's paying you, and he says, "Hey, I have this song idea. Would you please sit with me? And I just want to see if I can get a little production going and just record some vocals for this." And you bring him to the studio because it's a quick buck, and you just kind of just whatever, like, all right, you don't kind of walk him through it. You don't kind of take the time to nurture that moment. What happens if that song was a world changer? And it just so happened that you just didn't care because you don't, who's this person? He's a nobody. That kind of a mentality is ironic because you never know where the greatest things will sprout from. But we're in a society where people lean into things that have already perceived value and ignore the things that don't, not realizing that's how you find gold. You find gold, but if you can, it's the wiser approach to me. If you just appreciate and respect people broadly, then when these things sprout, you don't miss that moment because you're open to just treating people fairly, versus kind of shunning people based upon a surface level assessment and then blocking your own blessings. It's oftentimes actually the people that are the small fries that will treat you and respect you the best. So this is why I often, one of my prayers is however I may elevate or whatever may happen in my future, I don't ever want to lose sight of humility. A lot of people don't like that term nowadays, but humility is a superpower, really is, because you don't realize how many doors can open and how much great things can come from the simple things in life. So I really just wanted to share that with you. And but yeah, I just wanted to end the music subject with this. I've been making videos about, my particular vocal range is a baritone. And because if you don't know, there's different sectors of vocalists that are classified in ranges. You have bass. There's different ones in between, but these are just the generic ones. You have the bass, you have the baritone, you have the altos, you have the sopranos. There's categories in between all those things, but those are the generic ranges from low to high. Now, I just want to make sure you understand, wherever you fall into those categories, if you have a gift, you have a gift. That is, we can chew gum and walk at the same time. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the industry doesn't believe you can. The industry believes that there has to be someone at the top and someone at the bottom. And I don't subscribe to that. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, that had I told them the songs I was going to do, they would have talked me out of it because I don't have the voice for that. Of course they would have. It's just how people are, right? It is not in the nature of people to support something they can't understand. It is not, because a lot of people, if they can't envision themselves doing it, or if it goes against the grain of the norm that they're used to, then they resist naturally, which is why often I encourage you, sometimes keep things privately, keep your ambitious ventures private, because to some people it's going to be too much. To some people, are you sure? They will are you sure you out of your ideas, so you want to be sure that even if you're not a master at it, 9 times out of 10, if you think your approach to something may be kind of different, give it a try, because it may be strange now, but things don't stay strange all the time. Things are always strange at first, and things always can't be done at first until it is done. And then everybody gets on board with that, So I just want to say, that's one of the reasons why I was ambitious enough to take on the types of songs I take on, and I still do, because what people may not know about me is I just don't follow behind people. I follow good leadership, but I just don't feel the need to conform to things that I don't have to conform to. And I was given a gift for a reason, and I'm just determined to live my days out being brave and developing myself and challenging myself to push myself to enter into lanes that people may not think I can go into. And it's so much beyond that, but I just wanted to kind of seal that on there. I just kind of said a lot, but I hope that made some sense to you. And one thing I really can't help with my videos is that if anything that I say ruffles your feathers, it's a you thing, right? Because this is all coming from a love standpoint. And if you can't hear the help, the support through what I talk about, it's probably something deeper on the inside that's bothering you, that I hope you can work through, truly. So, gonna kind of take a complete 90-degree angle to this second subject. I really wanted to talk about really quick, navigating social issues and political subjects. Now, this is related in a sense. You're going to kind of see what I'm saying, but I'll just kind of dip in and dip out of this. When it comes to, I'll just start with this. When it comes to politics, whatever, don't assume what anybody stands based upon what they look like, based upon nothing. Like people have to tell you specifically. Anything outside of that is an assumption. So just starting with that. Now, secondly, always remember, when you have never experienced things, you can only really live by your own prism, right? What I mean by that is it's easy to say, I would never this, I would never that. They shouldn't this, they shouldn't that. It should just be like this, it should just be like that, when your worldview is very small. And the reason why that's important is if you find yourself with a lack of empathy, with a lack of understanding, and you cast a judgment about matters based upon limited experience, you find yourself in a predicament. And the predicament that I don't think is very healthy is being the kind of human that can't connect to the pain of another person simply because of the luxuries you may have had in your life. So when it comes to social issues, I want to give you some tips on how to deal with people you may have opposing political views with. Just to give you some little nuggets, because and I'll explain why this is important, especially to my my church audience, because it's so strange to me. I myself, I aspire to be, the best I can be and live right and do all the things. But at the same time, I believe it's important to stay informed. And burying your head in the sand isn't going to work all the time. You could ignore matters as much as you want. But I always say this to my friends and everybody. You can turn the news off. You can refuse to have conversations about things. But there is going to come a day where it's going to slap you in the face. And then you're going to regret not being informed. You're going to turn around and wonder, how come I can't do this? How come I can't do that? How come that's happening to them? How come this is happening over there? Well, you were trying to protect your peace the whole time. That you protected your peace into ignorance. And that is real life. It is smart to not stress yourself out about things that you can't change. I 100% agree. And actually, if you're going through very, very difficult things in life where your mental and your emotional state is pressed down to the ground, I absolutely encourage you to disconnect and unplug for a while, because those are you know yourself and you know your limitations. Now, if you disconnect indefinitely and you use protecting your peace as a cop-out, you know exactly what you're doing. And it's going to blow up in your face. It's going to backfire, right? Because if you cannot both care about the sufferings of other people, care about the actual policies that are actually running the society of which you live in, while also protecting your peace, you are the world's worst multitasker. And that's just the truth. I mean, you have to be able to do both, especially at our big age. You have to be able to, at some point, understand what major legislation is going on, because that matters if you want to be a functioning adult in society. And I think whenever you have family or friends, like I have known people since I was young that differed in political and social views, right? When it comes to, growing up, we talked about a lot about Black culture and different things in my home. And for just a small example, I have family members that, I'm Jamaican, so from the context of that, they're Caribbeans, but we would still talk about a lot of different things. And I've had family that say like, well, black people just do this, black people do that. They need to just do this, they need to just do that. And then I have other people, family that's like, well, you're negating all the historical context that goes into these types of things. So I've seen both angles of it, and it stuns me that you can, let me leave you with this. If you want to know the kind of heart a person has, if you want to know a person's character, if you want to know a person's moral lens, evaluate and ask them the right questions about what they believe socially is right and why, and ask them what they believe politically and why. This is just one way to tell the kind of person that you're dealing with. And for me, it has never failed. A lot of the times, the way people deal with you, the way people view other people, and the way people navigate around other people, it's a direct correlation to what they believe a lot of times socially and politically. So it's just one little strategy I'm giving you to really determine the kind of people that you're around and how they think about things. There was a gentleman, I'll say this too, and I hope he's watching, because I'm not going to bite my tongue about this story. This was during the George Floyd incident. And this is something that, call me biased, that is my perspective on this. To make a long story short, he was talking about the man deserved it and he asked for it. You know, he was a drug, he was a this, he was a that. And I asked the guy, I said, so he deserved to be killed? And he was, so, you know, when people don't have an answer, they give you a non-answer. You know, those kind of conversations that you have with people where they don't answer the question because in their heart of hearts, they know that they're wrong, but they're too proud to just say, oh, you're right. They're too proud to do that. So they'll respond with a non-answer. And so his response was, again, listing the things that he's done. So I said, okay, this is what I want to leave with you. I let him know, let it never be your son. I don't like people to feel like I'm speaking bad into their life, but this is my, let me provoke you with this. Again, I said, I never said I'm where I stand politically or nothing like that. But when you look at things, when you zoom out and you look at matters from a larger perspective, instead of a narrow-minded perspective, you begin to see how people view the world. And also that teaches you about themselves, which kind of did give me an insight onto him, which is a different story. But my point is, he wouldn't want that to be his son. That's the irony. Most people, just take the BLM, for example. Most people never understand a hashtag, a movement, whatever it may be, women's rights, whatever it may be. Most people never can sympathize, never can understand, never can get it until they do. How many movements have been birthed because of someone's death? That is proof to my point that should it take tragedy to just relate to human experience? No. I would rather choose to just understand a person than be a victim myself to understand. But a lot of people have to be. Just like friendships. I often talk about that. A lot of people think, oh, I'm different. Oh, they wouldn't do that to me. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. Okay. You were warned. Go ahead. And later down the line, they realize, oh, they're dealing with me like that. I don't know why they're doing me like that. I don't do nothing to them. Yeah, but there's a difference between misjudging people and accurately assessing how people are and being warned about that and choosing ignorance, right? So it was something that I learned as a kid that you should not have to learn the hard way. I heard that all the time. And I've had my moments, of course, because there's just certain things in life that there's a piece of our human mind that's so ignorant because it's like we'll know the cliff ends right there and just go march off right off of it. It's like, why do we do that? I don't know. But I'm just expressing that's the human side, right? But it's still at a larger standpoint socially. You're going to have, even if you don't have views, even if you're not a passionate person, you ought to give people the respect they're due, because you would not ever have the liberties you do if nobody cared at no time about politics or about social views. You wouldn't be able to do anything. I wouldn't be able to sit here if someone before me didn't care about the society that they were in. Because a lot of us are like that. We're so everybody can't do it. I get it. I want to make sure that's reiterated because some people will watch these things and zone in on themselves so much, and then I can't address every single nuance. I want to make sure that's clear. But at the same time, they're protecting your peace is an excuse that can go but so far. At a certain point, life is going to face you directly in the face, and you'll have nowhere else to go but address it. And if you get to that point and you're not prepared because you was being lazy and inattentive because your life was going okay and nothing was going on with you, always remember, you heard me say this before, everything you have, everybody you know, all the beauty you have, whatever, all the connections you have, all the whatever it may be, you can lose it all overnight. It doesn't take much for, it's very few people that's just going to stand by you in life regardless of what you go through. But they exist, they're just extremely rare. So when you kind of handle people and handle things and handle experiences like it can all be ripped away from you at any time, if you approach life like that, it doesn't make you paranoid, but it makes you value it more. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I appreciate you listening to that point. Now, I want to go into one more section here, and then we're going to wrap this part up of the conversation, the power of self-honesty. I wanted to really elaborate on that because I know there's so much, it's like maybe 15, 20 years ago, you could be in the public media industry. You could just be a person, make a mistake, get back up. Nowadays, it's so much weaponization. It's like you can't make a mistake without that being who you are to the world forever, which is ironic because the people behind the scenes that will hold things over people's heads have stuff that could be held over their heads. They're just not in front for people to see, So it's, if people was humble and realized that it could be them, then we would all give people a fair playing field and treat people fairly. But that's a different story. So I just want to say, one of the things I've learned in my personal life is that it is a very, very powerful thing to be honest with yourself. Whether, you have emotional issues, commitment issues, whatever it may be, strengths, whatever it may be, when you're honest with yourself, there's a certain amount of power it just takes away from the people in your life, or the people you may know, or the people in the world. One of the reasons why I love this podcast is because nobody dictates what I talk about. Nobody does. Nobody does. Like I intentionally approached my podcast this way because I know how people are. And I know that if I was constantly chasing this rabbit, to try to like keep up with you all, then I would lose myself. I will be kind of thinking, oh, how do I top this? Like, what guests can I have on next that will get the people to watch me? That type of a thing. And I don't want to ever lose sight of why I do what I'm doing, and lose the fun out of it, So the level of honesty that you're able to have with yourself when you're clear is extremely powerful. And when you can admit things to yourself that people won't give you grace for, it's a extremely healthy turn to take, because more people out there will always want your downfall more than people that want you to succeed. I've talked about that briefly before, where with my podcast, my music, it would be the silliest thing for me to think everybody watching my podcast, everybody listening to my music thinks I sound great and no, they don't. I'm sure there is somebody that think I sound horrible, that think he should not be singing this, he shouldn't be singing that, he should be saying this, he should be saying that. Oh, I found out this, I found out that. Oh, what about this? He probably that. That's just that. I guess, for me, when you're used to something and people come along and keep doing it, it's like it doesn't faze you because you've already been there before. But at the same time, people don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like it gives you a certain strength and confidence when you're willing to let people be. you know, let people do what they have to do, but don't let that stop you from living, right? At a certain point, you can't manage. Like again, I try to tell you all, you can be extremely private, you can be, but there's always somebody that's going to give you grief, whether you're on camera or not. A lot of people take a lot of pride in the fact that, well, I mean, that's fine. If you are, it's fine, but it doesn't make you better than anybody by not being on social media. It just makes that your decision. But don't get it twisted. You can have just as much problems as anybody does, whether they're on camera or not. People can rise up against you and slander you and do all kind of things, and you don't bother nobody at all, good or bad. That's just how that works. The reason why people like myself show up on camera is because we have a purpose. We have ambitions. There's plenty of things that I'm doing now with God's help that I have dreamed to do since I was a very young kid. Some of you that may watch me now is new to you, but I've been on YouTube for many, many years, long before I met a lot of you. So it is just an evolution that you're just kind of on the ride with, saying that to say that it's not stirred by proving anything to anybody or, taking the time to try to be impressive to people. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to just express to you is that, there's a lot of hard things to reckon with. There's a lot of difficult things to wrangle. But I would rather live my life being honest with him than trying to prove myself to you, right? You just can't. You can't. You can't do that. It's an uphill battle. So I just wanted to just express that to you. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about those subjects. I hope something in that blurb was helpful. Please, please, please try to be kind to people. It's kind of very tacky to people in this generation to be kind. It's like cheesy. To me, it's easy personally. I mean, people sometimes wonder why I get along with people so well. It's just because it's kind of easy to be nice and kind of takes a lot of energy to be a jerk. But I guess, that's some people's aesthetics. But I really want to express to you that it will only benefit you, but not naive, right? People think people like me are naive all the time and they can play me and that I'm not smart and I'm not deep just because I smile a lot and I'm really kind and I'm thoughtful and all this. No, they can think that. The power is in what you allow and what people know, like what I tell a person. That's what I'm concerned about. What people assume, you can assume without. You can assume all day long. It's more important to me what I permit. You can knock on my door, but if I don't open it, you're just gonna be knocking. So that's kind of how I approach these types of things. But I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you had, it's just me today, so it means a lot if you've made it to the end of the video. I would give you a gold star, but don't have one. But stay tuned for my newest single. I'm really, really excited about it. It's feels like I'm kind of calling it a classic, but it's a song called "You Can Make It." There's one of my favorite lines in the song is in the chorus. It says, "Forget about what people say. God can always make a way." And that sounds like a Dr. Seuss line, but it's a real line in the song because the song is letting you know that you may have extremely hard trials, you may have extremely great victories, regardless of the circumstances that you're dealing with in your life. There's nothing you can't make it through without, with leaning on the Lord. And I think that is a message that can go so far into so many people's lives. So I hope that this song really encourages you. I'm going to try to put my best vocals on this because that's the beauty about progressing. When you continue to do and continue to work and continue to sharpen your gifts, you only can get better, So I hope that it reaches you. And thank you again for those of you who continue to stream my songs and listen to my songs in the car and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's thrilling to, in my mind, I'm like, that mix wasn't that best, but I'm so glad y'all like it anyway. That's the beauty, that everybody's not, musically inclined, so they don't hear the stuff that make you stressed out. So I appreciate y'all for that. Stay tuned for my next podcast. When will it be? I don't know. But I appreciate the time to be able to sit here in your living room, on your phone, wherever you may be. Don't drive. Pause. You should have paused it if you're driving. But I appreciate it. Take it easy. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me as well on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but don't worry about that. But yeah, so I appreciate you all again, and you have a great rest of your day.